Well, I said from the very start that Hamas created this battlefield. They knew what was going to happen. The whole purpose of taking hostages and bringing them back into Gaza was to lure Israel into this. Hamas knew that Israel was going to bomb the civilians. Why? Because Israel has that Dahiyah strategy. That's what they do. Hamas knew about the artificial intelligence gospel Hasbara strategy that basically says, here's a building. We assess 2.3 Hamas casualties if you drop a bomb on it. We also assess 300 civilians, but we don't care. Bomb them anyways, because we're the Israelis. We're the worst people in the world right now. We are literally the worst people. Israel's the worst nation in the world right. There's no nation worse than Israel because they are literally a nation dedicated to committing genocide against the Palestinians. And Hamas knew that this was going to happen. Hamas knew that they had 500 kilometers of tunnels. And they've designed these tunnels for this very fight. Again, you have to respect this because the Hamas plan on October 7th was so well planned, so much good intelligence that you have to understand that they don't do things half-assed. This isn't guesswork on their part. This is a deliberate plan of action. They're bringing them into a fight that Hamas wants to take place. It's not like Hamas is going, oh my God, they're here. What do we do? Hamas is going, they're here. We brought them here. Now let's implement our plans. Hamas knows that Israel will find tunnels. That's why they seal them off. Notice when Israel finds a tunnel, they hit a dead end. They can't get into the rest of the network because Hamas went, oh, they discovered a tunnel, shut it down. Boom, bam, done. They built their system that way. They have duplication of effort. They knew that Israel was going to collapse the infrastructure down on top. That is a huge detriment to the Israelis because now their mobility is going to be channeled. Infantry isn't going to be able to cover as effectively. If you study these Hamas videos, these guys are using the rubble to their advantage. Look at the angles of attack. If you're an Israeli operating, walking around, looking, all you see is collapsed buildings. Hamas now is in a little crevice in there, looking through a hole, getting the Israeli tank and using that single line there to hit the Israeli tank. You can't defend against that. You literally cannot defend against this. Hamas has tunnels that come up everywhere. And once they're in the rubble, they're in there turning the rubble into hardened defensive positions. They are preparing ambushes in advance. This is a never-ending problem. The Israelis then retreat out of the urban areas and create these, they bring in the bulldozers and they scrape away these bermed defensive positions. And then Hamas pops up in a tunnel in the middle of it and runs out there and kills a bunch of Israelis. This is a death by 1,000 cuts. This is the battle Hamas wanted to fight. Are they taking losses? Yeah, I can guarantee you this, though. Israel, we're in a situation that's almost Vietnam-like, where, we become so obsessed in Vietnam to body counts that we kill an entire village and we call it Viet Cong. We killed 900 confirmed Viet Cong, KIA. No, you just killed 900 old men, women, and children. You didn't kill 900. Okay, but the Israelis right now are killing every Palestinian male of a certain age that gets killed as a Hamas fighter. No, I think Hamas has lost several hundred fighters. They have between them and the other ones, like 80,000. So there's a lot of guys left to fight and die. And Israel doesn't have enough troops to do this. The amount of dead, we know that the Israelis suppressed the figures early on up in against Hezbollah. How do we know that? Because an Israeli doctor went into the refrigerated morgue, opened it up and said, boom, there's more bodies in here, just this morgue, than what Israel's admitted to losing right here. But they're not counting these bodies yet because it's too demoralizing. The Israelis are in one of these. It's like, why do the Ukrainians lie about their numbers? Because if the truth gets known, morale will collapse. So the Israeli government has made a strategic decision to suppress casualty figures so that they don't collapse the morale, the support of the Israeli people. I don't know what the true Israeli casualties are. I do know that the numbers they put out don't jive against the video evidence. Now, there's no guarantee. First of all, a lot of the explosions we see on these Israeli tanks are reactive armor. So you're going to get a nice big explosion. It isn't necessarily resulting in a mobility kill or even damage. So it's, there's the likelihood is many of these explosions aren't, achieving a hard kill, and the troops inside are surviving intact. Maybe a little shooken up, going to have headache and hearing loss, but you're going to be okay. So you can't just sit there, well, because they hit all this is happening. No, these tanks are good tanks. They're survivable tanks. They're designed to do this, but they are losing a lot more tanks than this is why they had to stop reselling their old Merkava 3 tanks that they were going to sell to Morocco and others. They had to keep them because they have to organize new reserve armored battalions to make up for the losses that they're suffering in Gaza. But now this fight's turned into an infantry fight, and the Israeli infantry just isn't up to the task. I'm not, I'm an old fat man thousands of miles away from the battlefield, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I could do it any better than the Israelis. When I was younger, I could do it a hell of a lot better, and so could my Marines. These guys aren't very good. Russian people Russian commanders who fought in Mariupol, fought in Bakhmut, are looking at the Israeli tactics that they're using, and they're saying if they took this up against a real army, they'd all be dead. But they're not fighting they're fighting Hamas. It's a different kind of fight, but these aren't very good soldiers. They're not, they don't have the discipline. They can't. How can you be, let's just put it this way. If you're a 23-year-old major, you ain't very good.
You're right.
Okay. Major should be around, 32, 35, so that's a whole nother decade of experience you need to have before you're a major. If you're a 19-year-old sergeant, you ain't very good at all.
When I was I'll say this, in law enforcement, when I became captain, I was 36. And I was the youngest captain in the state of Maryland. Of all of the, various police departments that the state has, I was the youngest one. I got major at 38. And that was fairly young, right? Because it takes a lot of years just to know, for one thing, all the policies and procedures. What happens if this happens? You can't hold on, let me go get the manual. You have to know, if this happens, notify this person, do this, call this person. People are going to look at you. This happened. What do we do? You have to know that stuff, rote memory, right? You ain't going to learn that in a couple of years. So even in law enforcement, you're not going to find a bunch of captains and majors running around even in their late 20s. Usually it's their late 30s. The guys are going to have some gray starting to show up here before you start seeing those oak leaves and train tracks start to show up on their collar, right? So you can call somebody a major, but when you just stick them out there, and of course, in the rubble, let's be honest, if we're fighting in the rubble and I'm Hamas, I'm looking for oak leaves and stripes. I'm looking for the guy in that kind of environment. I'm looking for the people with rank to shoot first.
Well, you know why they have majors that are 23 years old? Because, look, I got promoted to captain when I was 28 years old. Okay, one thing I learned to become a captain is that the answer is staff sergeant. First thing, hey, Cap, what about this? Good question. Staff sergeant, hey, Gunny, come here. What's the answer to that question? Because I'm just 28. I may have captain rank, but I don't know. I mean, I was honest enough to say, I don't know. Gunny, staff sergeant, sergeant, corporal, lance corporal, somebody come and help me, please, because I don't know the answer. But that's okay, because I had experienced Marines who would then come in and say, hey, Captain, this is what we think that. And then I would sit there and think about it and come up with an answer. But what's happening with the Israelis, they don't have that. They don't have 15-year gunnery sergeants. They don't have 10-year staff sergeants. They got 19-year-old sergeants. So what that means is the tasks that would be assigned to these experienced NCOs in the American system have to be assumed by officers. So they have majors, 23-year-old majors, doing the work of a staff sergeant. It's a totally screwed up system where they're officers. They're saying this is the leadership ethic of the Israelis. No, it ain't. It's called stupidity. It's called a conscript army. It's called what happens when you don't have a professional army. And just keep in mind that the vast majority of these Israelis out there fighting are young kids with no military experience. These aren't guys that have been in the military for 10 years, 15 years, who've been there, done it, got a couple T-shirts. These are guys, this is their first experience, and they're not trained well. They didn't go. I saw a comment in there about a guy saying, I lived at, I was stationed at Fort Hood, but I lived at 29 Palms, or he lived at Fort Ord. He talked about Reforger, the reinforcement of forces in Germany. That's an exercise that we did during the Cold War, where we would literally every year, or sometimes twice a year, fly 10,000 soldiers out to join up with pre-positioned equipment. And within less than 12 hours of landing, they were in the field with their equipment going through combat drills, because that's the way we had to fight with the Soviets coming across the border. You had to land, jump in, and go. Be ready to fight now. And the only way you could do that is by training 24/7. You didn't even become good at Reforger. I would ask this guy to ask me that. Were you good the first time you did Reforger? No. Why? Because it was all new. You're going, Christ, this is difficult. I don't understand what's going on. You only became good at Reforger about the fourth time you did it, when you went, okay, I know what to expect. I can anticipate. My brain's not going to get bogged down. I can boom. And suddenly things are working the way they're supposed to work. That was the whole purpose of it. But 4 Reforgers meant that you were in for, 2, 3, 4 years before you became good at it. Israeli conscripts in for 2.5 years. Half of that time spent just getting basic training. They aren't good at anything. They're not good at anything. And I'm just saying that with all seriousness. They suck. They're good at beating up girls, beating up 10-year-old boys, breaking arms, shooting old men, but they're not good at war. They're not good at it all. You can't even be good at tank operator. Think about that. Who's driving the damn Merkava tanks? Guys have been driving for 10 years? No, guys that got straight out of armor school, and now they're in a Merkava tank in one of the most demanding environments in the world. They don't know how to use cover. They don't know anything about what they're doing. They're coming in there scared. Bam, they get hit. Now what do? Where's their infantry support? Did they practice that tactic? Half the people out there that have worked with the American tank infantry team knows what happens the first time you go out there and you try to work with the Bradley and dismounted guys. You screw it up badly. You lose every time. Why? Because the enemy's going to kick your ass, because you don't know what you're doing. But then you take that loss, you come back and you talk about it, and you say, okay, hey, rather than you guys deploying here and getting overextended and me coming in without you here, okay, we're going to come in. Get that guy deployed first. Okay, you got that field of fire. Come in here, boom. Okay, get the fire suppression down. Okay, now move in. Now do this. Now you're thinking tactically. It takes a long time to do that. These Israelis don't think tactically. Plus, they're emotion-driven. When your strategic purpose is to inflict pain on the Palestinians, that's what you're doing. These Israelis are more intent on making TikTok videos showing them desecrating mosques, burning schools, embarrassing, humiliating Palestinian women than they are focused on the actual business of war. If you're not, I was told, I'll just leave this. I had a Marine captain once drive me from, I took a ride from Washington, D.C. back to Quantico. As we're driving there, we're talking, and he's like, you're going to be a career Marine. I'm like, yeah, it looks like it. And he's like, okay, hey, what do you see out here? And I'm driving through in this beautiful land of Northern Virginia. And I went, I don't know, some hills, some town. He goes, you ain't a professional warrior yet. He goes, when you look at that, I want you to see, the best route up the hill, where the covering fire position is. I want you to be looking at, cover, concealment. You have to be thinking this every time you go. We told that same thing with firefighters. I was drive through with my firefighters in town. I'd say, what do you see? Oh, street. I said, no. You have to see single wall construction. You have to see this. You have to look in there and see the car. Are there children's toys out in the front yard? So if you show up, are there going to be kids in that house? Is there evidence of animals? You got to look at this kind of stuff. When you got to think firefighting. Where's the fire hydrant? What's my best approach so I don't block the ladder coming in? Where are the lines? Yet, if you're not thinking like that, you're not a professional. As a Marine, I literally, to this day, I look at everything from a perspective of tactical advantage, operational, logistical sustainability, because I was trained that way. These Israelis, they don't think like that. They don't think like that at all. They're not very good at what they do. And Hamas lured them into a trap of their own making, and Hamas is kicking the living snot out of them.
If you got a couple minutes, you got enough for one more subject? Maybe we'll
yeah.
10 minutes. Okay. Let me share 2 things with you. Let's look at it. Number one, going to do two. Here's the first one. Breaking. Marianne Williamson claims primaries are rigged, accuses 4 states of bias towards Joe Biden. So what we got is Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Massachusetts. Only Biden's name will appear on the ballot. They will not allow anyone. The Democratic Party has decided those 4 states are Joe Biden's. If Garland Nixon, if Scott Ritter, if somebody who's lived in that state the entire life, if they're beloved by everyone and they say, you know what, I think I want to give it a shot. Sorry, Joe Biden's the only person. It's like we hear about those banana republics. Hey, vote for whoever, and they put one name on the ballot. Now, let's do one other. One more article. All right. Republicans threatened to take Joe Biden off the ballot in states they control, right? And why are they doing that? Because of a Colorado ruling that Donald Trump is not permitted to be on the ballot this year. So what we got is a Democratic Party where Biden, let's face it, he's done. We watched him the other day say that 65 years ago on October 7th, 65 years ago, he said this. I saw the video that Hamas attacked Israel. His father, he literally said, my father went back to the kibbutz to look for his family. His Irish Catholic father, who died 20 years ago, apparently was living in a kibbutz. 65 years / days. It was madness. And the Democratic Party has said, in our primaries, you can only vote for this guy. Meanwhile, as far as the Republicans are concerned, Donald Trump, like him, don't like him, it doesn't matter. He has every right. You and I have every right to run. Everybody has every right to run. I'm sorry, if you're a person that wants to vote for Donald Trump, nah, that ain't happening. He ain't on the ballot. To call this a miscarriage of justice is absurd. But it's like I said now, Republicans are saying, as soon as that happened, I said that we'll take Joe Biden off the ballot in states where they control, which I disagree with all of it, but I predicted that would happen. We now have a Democratic Party that has become, I don't even know what the word for this is, fascism, to say we're going to take people off the ballots, where our own constituents, they can't vote. You want to talk about a banana republic fascist activity? This is about as bad as I've ever seen it. What are your thoughts on this, Scott Ritter?
No, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's over for America. We've become a joke, a tragic joke. Democracy is dead. I mean, it works at the local level to an extent, but again, who puts the names on the ballot? Ask yourselves that. I mean, when you go to the poll on election day and you go, okay, here's the name, who put them there? Did you? Or did the Democratic Party pick somebody? Or did the Republican? See, we become so accustomed to, transferring the responsibilities of citizenship to entities that are unelected, and they get to select for us. So when we go to elect, we're going through the process of thinking we're voting and therefore being a good citizen and we have control, but we're just voting for a preordained outcome, one or the other, picked by somebody else that we have not. We're dead as a society. We are done. I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in constitutional processes. And it's illegal to advocate for violent overthrow of the Constitution. It's illegal to do that. But when the Constitution no longer works, when it's become a fraud, when it's become a joke, maybe Thomas Jefferson had it right. I'm not going to repeat his words because I don't want people to get in trouble. You guys can look them up. You know what I'm talking about. The Tree of Liberty. We're headed in the wrong direction. And I don't know what it takes to get the American people to wake up, because it's not just about getting Joe Biden out of office. It's not just about putting Donald Trump or keeping Donald Trump out of office, whatever you want. It's about the system. The system is corrupt. The system is broken. The system is the one that fools us into thinking that this is a democratic institution. We are a joke, literal joke. We go around and we interfere in the electoral processes of other nations and say, well, you don't run elections right. We don't run elections right. Man, There is no singular. We have 50 states to do 50 different things with different ways, and within the states, different things. We don't know how to run an election. Why is it that Iran can tell you the same day who won the election with a very accurate vote count? Why can Iran count votes better than we can? Why can't we count votes? What is it about the American system that has it so that on the day of a national election, we have to wait a week until we find out what vote count is? Guys, it's broken. The system's broken. And it leads to, I'm not going to jump here and jump on the bandwagon of a stolen election. All right. I'm not saying, what I'm saying though is it leads to the perception of a problem. If at the end of the night, you don't know what's going on, and then things start happening. Now, people tell you that that's not nefarious and all that, but things start happening, then vote counts start changing. That may be just the process of counting votes. I accept that, but it doesn't look right. It doesn't smell right. And it creates the perception of fraud. And the perception of fraud is more destructive to democracy than real fraud, or as destructive, because people start to lose faith in the system. And then this leads to people accepting at face value. I mean, this is revolution generating stuff. You can only have one name on the ballot. Since when did we allow that as Americans? This is where the Minutemen go in the street and say, hell no, we're changing that. But, Bernie Sanders should have done this back when Hillary Clinton had him kicked off, when he won the damn Democratic primary, but the Democratic National Committee stole it from him to install the Queen. He should have stormed the stage and taken over that process and said, you're all fired. I'm in charge now. My people have spoken. It's democratic process. We got more supporters for me than you do for her. I'm the nominee. The Democratic National Committee is fired. The people have now taken over. Wow. That would have been a revolution. That would have been cool. At some point in time, we have to stop playing sheep, literally. The thing about sheep is, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. You're out there, man, you got a dog. He makes you feel good because he keeps you moving in the right direction. Dog's my friend. And then you got the shepherd out there, and you look at the shepherd. The shepherd's protecting me because the shepherd feeds the dog protects me. And they keep moving me in this direction. I'm happy. And then the shepherd stops, and the dog puts me into a pen. Then they open up a pen, and I get pushed in. Shepherd, until I'm slaughtered. That's what we are. We are sheep being led to the slaughter, believing the dog and the shepherd are our friends. They're not. They're just going to kill us. That's the reality of American politics today. We have to be our own shepherd. We have to be our own dog. We've allowed these institutions to be captured by unelected powers, people who operate outside of the control of the American people. And we'll pay the price. I mean, we're paying the price, right? This election's a joke, Garland. This election is a joke. Let the people decide. Why is the Colorado Supreme Court jumping in to remove a name from a ballot, making up constitutional law as they go along, literally manufacturing constitutional law? Nobody asked your damn opinion. It's a Democrat who's pushing this to get Trump off the ballot. I'm not saying I'm supporting Trump. I'm not saying that. I'm saying let the people decide. Let the people of Colorado decide if Donald Trump is their man. And the only way you can do that is to put his name on the ballot if enough people want his name on the ballot. But they're jumping in, they're interfering with the process. The same thing with the Democrats. Marianne Williamson isn't going to beat Joe Biden in Massachusetts. She isn't. But that you don't get to preordain that outcome. Put her name on the ballot. Put every Democratic name on the ballot that wants to contest this, because that's the American way. That's the American way.
Well, here's the thing, though, Scott. Here's what I think. Looking at Joe Biden, he'll be lucky to be alive next August. Ain't no guarantee that guy's going to be around. I wouldn't buy green bananas if I was him, because he ain't guaranteed to be here when they get right. But if they do that, right? At some point, when you get to the convention, Joe Biden or whoever has assumed Joe Biden's campaign can take all of the delegates Joe Biden has and say, I want to give them to somebody, anybody they choose, right? So what they do is they start stacking up these ballots so that when they get to the convention, they can say, we chose, I wonder if it's going to be Gavin Newsom. Oh, yes, there we go. Well, we got all of these delegates for Biden, We got 4 guaranteed states: Florida, big state; Massachusetts, big state, right? We take them and we say, we've decided Gavin Newsom gets all of Joe Biden's ballots, including these 4 states. And it allows them to, within the boundaries of what appears to be their rules, choose someone. It's all a setup. I really don't believe at this point Joe Biden can or will be the nominee. And now they're just setting the table for how they can choose somebody. And then their other plan appears to be just get Trump off the ballot at all costs. And then, but they're setting themselves up, to me, for some kind of, I hate to use this word, but some kind of, let's just say, internal chaos, some kind of internal U.S. chaos if they do this, because I don't think people are just going to accept this laying down, Scott.
I don't think so, but I mean, I'm not, again, FBI watching, I am not encouraging political violence.
Right.
Not my thing. But you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it. In fact, I would argue this. What we're doing is saying the opposite. We're saying, look, we got rules, constitutional rules. Let's go by them. But I'll say this, and I'll end with this, Scott. I think that when you have done the kind of things, blowing up Nord Stream, all of this Russiagate stuff, all of these illegal, the censorship stuff, when you have that many skeletons in your closet, the Biden administration, the FBI, Congress, etc., they can't afford at this point to have somebody come into office that may say, I want to overturn these rocks and start looking. The FBI is crooked. It's all crooked. You're attacking Germany. You're doing all of this stuff. There's no way that this corrupt government can afford to have a person who's even partially honest, or even in Donald Trump's case, vindictive, that says, we're going to look at this stuff and see what you're doing. There's no way they'll all get the chair if that happens. They painted themselves into this corner with the level of corruption that the Biden administration now has. Scott, you get the last word.
No, I agree. Look, let's put it this way. If we elected an honest man who was backed by an honest Congress, the FBI would be disbanded on day one. Day one. It's literally a frontal assault on the rule of law. It's a disgusting organization that simply operates beyond the law, above the law. The CIA's covert operation would be shut down as unconstitutional and un-American. I'm not some naive kid. I know how the intelligence business works, and I know we got to do certain things. But the CIA has become an entity unto itself that only governs itself, and they do things for the sake of just doing it. And the second you have a CIA officer capable of thinking, "Screw you, Mr. President, I'm going to do this," that means that person no longer is adhering to the oath, and they should be terminated with extreme prejudice. There's many American. I mean, the entire establishment is this way. It's become an entity that exists for the entity, not for the American people. It is corrupt as the day is long. And as you said, so many crimes have been committed in the name of the FBI and the CIA and other institutions that they can't allow the truth to come out. They can't survive the scrutiny. They literally can't survive the scrutiny. And so they have to keep electing people from within the system who won't ask the questions, who will allow this to sustain. If we ever got a genuine person up there, you know what would happen, Garland. You know exactly what happened. They'd be dead.
Yeah, the whole thing. Oh, yeah, because the whole thing would collapse. It's sitting there now, and it's like Jenga. You pull out one little block, woo, the whole thing falls. All right, Scott Ritter. Don't forget, everybody, go to ScottRitterExtra.com for all of Scott's good works. It's Christmas time, so it is the perfect time to go there and to make your donations for Maverick, who's sitting back there panting, saying, I know I got some good Christmas presents coming here in a couple days, and I'm sure everybody's going to go to ScottRitter.com and have a little something extra in Maverick's stocking. How about that? And, of course, you see everything going by across the bottom. Don't forget rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. So if they throw me off of YouTube, you know where to find me at Rockfin. Costs nothing to join, but if you choose, you can become a member at Rockfin. It's $14.99 a month to become a member to help strengthen the channel if you can afford it. If not, Everybody do two things. Number one, attack that like button. Terminate the like button with extreme. Hit the like button with an elbow shot, a baseball bat, punch it. If you have a hypersonic missile, aim it at the like button. Make sure that we outsmart the algorithm, and make sure you share this on all of your social media platforms. Thanks a lot, Scott, and I are out.